It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I am really excited to talk with my guest today. We're talking about something completely different that I guarantee most of you in the audience have not heard about before. My guest today is David Hammer. He's the founder and CEO of a company called Emissary.io, I guess. Is that you do the full .io? It's Emissary.io.
.io.
And based here in New York City, not too far from where I'm sitting today. And actually, I think we probably pass each other in the streets when we go to the grocery store. So David, welcome to Accelerate.
Thanks, Andy. It's a lot of fun to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, so me too. So, I mean, because again, what you guys are doing is so differentiated, and I'm excited to have people hear about this. So take a minute, maybe just quickly introduce yourself, so how you got to this point where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. My background is actually not in the world of sales. I come out of a product management. I was a product manager at Google for about 6 years and worked on a whole bunch of products there. Definitely had to do a whole bunch of selling in my job there. I spent a bunch of time on the advertising technology side. So I helped create a product called DoubleClick Bid Manager, which most people have never heard of, but is, I think, the third biggest revenue driver for the company now.
I was going to say that is Google in a heartbeat right there.
Yep. When I quit, I really became, I went to Google in the first place because I cared about problems of knowledge. And so I actually looked back at my time at Google and I said, where at Google were we making bad decisions? Were we not, doing the right thing? Where there was a knowledge problem, right? Google controls a little box that everyone in the universe types their wants into. Google should know everything, but we didn't. Mm-hmm. And in particular, I was thinking about how, we'd lose deals because we didn't really understand what the customer was really buying. Or we wouldn't really understand for our product offering exactly what the right context was and how painful it was to get those relationships and get that kind of access. And so I became convinced that there's all this valuable knowledge that was walking around locked up in people's heads. And knowledge that they just got from working in various places, organizational knowledge that was not going to use. And so Emissary was a platform that's fundamentally built to unlock that and offer that value to sales organizations. So what we realized was that what everyday people kind of acquire from their day-to-day working environments, that knowledge is incredibly valuable to sales organizations who are looking to get that kind of insight to help close deals. And so we created Emissary to do that. Okay,
so let's just describe how Emissary works, because I think you sort of touched on a little bit, but let's lay it out for people. So, it's very unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so,
we get that a lot.
Yeah,
I'd say, the most common thing we hear is I have never heard of an offering like that, but it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and I would describe it, and I'll start, and then you correct me if I get it wrong. Is that, you talk about these people walking around with this knowledge in their heads. They work at some level, hopefully senior positions in certain companies that enterprises you're trying to sell to. When they leave, what you want to do is say, how can I tap into that knowledge in order to help me sell back into that company that they worked for?
Mm-hmm. That's right. And so what we've built is a platform, a marketplace, right? Think like I sometimes joke, it's Airbnb for brains, right? So we've screened about over 5,000 people so far onto the platform, and that's growing by about 300 every week right now. Of these folks who come onto this platform and say, I know a lot about John Deere or LVMH or whoever it is.
Let's just say I used to work at IBM, let's say.
Right, you used to work at IBM. Maybe you were, really involved in the IT decision-making processes. So you'll speak to one of our recruiters and you'll come on board. And then what's going to happen is when a sales organization comes to us, we're going to kind of take a look at their pipeline. And let's say you're selling, let's say we've got a client who's selling to IBM into the right department. So you guys are going to get matched together. So you're going to get matched to the opportunity, and you'll basically be able to kind of do account level sales. You'll be able to get account level sales coaching on that deal from this emissary, from this person who knows that organization inside and out. So again, the first step is you come to us. We kind of collaborate with you. We actually have offering that syncs with your CRM system to make sure that you're able to easily kind of connect your pipeline to our system. And then what we're providing is a matchmaking system. So every time you have a new qualified opportunity, we're offering you an emissary who's saying, hey, I know the people you're talking to. I know the culture. I know all the subtle unwritten stuff. I know that Bob, who you're talking to, calls himself the decision maker, but it's Jane, who's going to sit 2 seats to his right and is never going to say a word in any meeting, that actually carries all the sway. That engineering as a major important group, and they actually hold all the decision making cards. But you're never going to see them, but you got to win them over. All of that, again, subtle, unwritten stuff that just doesn't really exist anywhere else. And the emissaries kind of help share that knowledge and move the deal forward.
Okay. So, let's take a step back and just so make sure people understand this. So when your clients are sales organizations, companies,
that's right.
And so first step is when they come in and they look and they say, okay, we sell to these enterprise type accounts, and wow, you've got emissaries, you said 5,000, growing at 300 a week.
Yep.
So when they sign on, what they do then is they connect their CRM systems, let's say Salesforce,
yep,
to your system.
That's right.
So you have insight into their pipeline, and through your marketplace, you're matching it to your available emissaries. Is it based on some sort of tagging or account name, or how's that matching done?
Yeah, we have a bunch of techniques. I think the big thing for us is we will never make a match that we can't stand behind. So for us, that means every emissary who we're going to match you to had former direct decision-making experience in the department that you're going after. And they've actually usually been briefed about the specific opportunity we're matching them to, and they've affirmatively said, yes, I can help move this deal forward.
And so you get that affirmative response from the emissary before you reach out and contact the sales organization?
That's right. Before we'll present you with an emissary, we want to be confident that they're going to be able to be valuable to the deal.
So you have, let's say, somebody on your team has client responsibility, and so the prospective matches are being presented to them first.
That's correct.
And then they go and they check, okay, we've got the emissaries. We'll verify with the emissaries they can do that. And then how do they present those matches then to your clients?
Yep. So again, that's all part of the platform. That's all part of the product, right? Is the sales management or the individual reps will basically receive these candidate matches. You'll be able to review them, accept them, reject them. Again, it's all part of the kind of platform, the ability to receive these matches and be able to kind of get started when you want.
So how do you pay for it?
So emissaries are getting compensated for their help, right?
Sure.
People are doing this certainly because they're getting compensated. Although what we've learned is that they're also doing it because they want to help, because it's fun, it's enjoyable, they get to kind of be along for the ride, and that's actually been a big surprise and a big learning for us. Is that this ends up really being a fun process for everyone who's involved to kind of be able to do this kind of thing. The way it works is that when you work with us, you can kind of buy a package of credits, and what credits basically let you do is you assign emissaries to opportunities. An emissary, we really like to see emissaries kind of work throughout the relationship of the deal. It's not just a single phone call. It's really you have access to them on an ongoing basis, weekly check-ins, to really make sure that they're continuously driving the deal forward. And for every month that you're working with an emissary, it's a credit.
Well, and so interesting use of the phrase. You talk about the emissary driving the deal forward. So,
yes,
what really becomes the dynamic in the deal in the relationship between, let's say you're an account exec and you're working on a major account, we'll call it IBM just because we've been using that example, and you've got an emissary that's going to help you on that. The account exec's still the lead. What do they expect to happen from the part of the emissary? And how do they check in? How do they set the plan? All those things.
Yeah. So there's two really interesting things to bring up here, right? The first thing just to emphasize, and I think you're kind of hinting at this a little bit, is emissaries are not meant to, they're not meant to replace your sales organization, right? They're not going to do the selling for you, right? They're providing intelligence, they're providing coaching, they're providing support. But ultimately, we're big believers that these kinds of labor marketplaces augment and accelerate your salespeople. They make them, an order of magnitude more effective because they don't have to spend time hunting things down. But ultimately, it is still your sellers whose job it is to do the selling. But that said, one of I think the most interesting things for us is, in the classic enterprise enterprise sale, one of the biggest problems that everyone's familiar with is the blind spot, right? The thing I didn't know to ask about. But if I had known, it would have changed everything. And the way that clients and emissaries work together is when a relationship kicks off, the first thing that the emissaries be done is they're briefed on what the client's goals are. And we encourage the emissaries to kind of be creative in terms of helping clients achieve those goals. They're actually able to they're not just saying, okay, well, tell me when you've got a meeting and I'll help you prep for it. But we actually have emissaries who say, oh, you're completely moving in the wrong direction. This is going to be this is going to be a dead end. Let me redirect you. Or, hey, you're not up to this yet, but when procurement comes around, just really be careful that you're not talking to this person about it because they're going to slow you down. Make sure you get away from them. Really, that kind of the ability to kind of empower the emissary with the goal and have them pull as much as the client is pushing is really critical. It really is a give and take, and it's cool to see.
So the emissaries could be doing a direct outreach to their former employer.
Yeah, so it's a good question. I like to say explicitly we're not in the business of selling introductions. I think that's not a sustainable business. I'd say emissaries are empowered to if they think it's something that they would stand behind, if it's something that they feel they're comfortable doing, but they're never obligated to. I would say statistically, we've seen roughly 30 to 40% of emissaries kind of make an introduction or reach out to somebody, put in a good word. But ultimately, influence is something you have to earn, not buy. And that's something that we continue to believe at this company.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I think that's, once people leave an organization, their influence wanes anyway, right? So
that's right.
And so
it's worth noting on that front, actually. Again, one of the reasons we recruit emissaries manually and we screen them manually is all emissaries are left our organizations in the past 2 years. We do optimize for recency of knowledge for the exact reason you just said, which is as people leave, organizations change, cultures change, decision makers change, and so one of the things we're able to commit to is always making sure that the people you're talking to kind of have real fresh knowledge.
Yeah. So, I mean, the interesting point then. So then you're going to have some churn in your base of emissaries because there is a half-life is what you're saying.
That's correct. And that's something that we've kind of accounted for in our model, right? So we have a constantly growing and changing base of emissaries. We've had people come out and come back in for a second company. As in many industries, life cycles can be short. But yes, we're kind of always making sure that we have kind of the right people on board for this.
Okay. All right. So, we've covered a lot in a short period of time here. Before, just make sure people, unpack this to think, okay, I mean, I think about my days and selling to major accounts around the world is, there would have been times when it would have been really useful. So I remember back in my days, one deal in particular, I could have used an emissary where we were competing for a piece of business with a major broadcast network, big deal, multi-million-dollar deal. And we thought we were talking to all the right people. We had all the right signs, all the right commitments. I mean, there wasn't anybody we weren't talking to. Didn't think we had buy-in. We lost the deal at the last minute to the incumbent, or not at the last minute. At the last minute, we found out we lost to the incumbent. And they were just using us as a stalking horse to get a better price. If we had an emissary that knew those people, he could have pointed out that, you guys are being played. And these guys were the best at playing us. I mean, I'd never been played like that before. Everybody in the our whole organization was fooled by this. That emissary would have been perfect for that situation.
One of the things that I like to say when I'm talking to clients is, one of my favorite questions to ask is, if you've ever won a deal because you got lucky, right? If you've ever, everyone's got one amazing story about, running into decision makers, brother in a bar a week before and said, make sure that you talk about this and this. And, ultimately those kinds of moments that can be transformative for a deal. And the question is, how do you manufacture that luck? How do you make that luck more predictable? How do you kind of create those moments that really allow you that kind of uncommon, that unknown piece of insight that can be very transformative? And we view emissaries as a way to load the dice, as a way to kind of change your luck, basically. And that's really critical for us. Yeah,
I mean if you're in major account sales, you're an entrepreneur, you sell to enterprises or sales organization, just think about this for a second. This is the thing that for me is so exciting because I look back on the days when I was selling multi-million-dollar deals to large companies. How just incredibly useful it would have been to have somebody with, as you said, some insights into how decisions are made. Who are the influencers that really make a difference? Challenger people at CEB talk about 6.8 stakeholders now in every decision. Let's assume that that's true, right? Which there's no reason to doubt it,
that's the new
especially
number,
in enterprise, right? So, there's lots of personalities. That's one of the big, themes of the Challenger customer book is that it's just the diversity of individuals within that stakeholder group that comprise it.
I'll tell you something, Andy. I was listening recently, actually, to your podcast from, I don't know, maybe a half a year ago with Richard Ruff on account-based selling.
Yeah.
And he said something that's obviously account-based selling is kind of very demode right now.
Well,
but as you've said, right, what's old is new again, right? I mean, not right, but certainly the new language. And Richard said something that I thought was very astute, which is that, a key thing about account-based selling is that it's resistant to kind of traditional standardization. It really is saying every account is its own strategy and its own approach, right? And, I mean, look, there's a long history, strategic selling, spin selling, right? Challenger sale, right? Like the idea of profound insight into your customer is not a new one.
No.
But one of the things that's interesting to me watching the kind of new account-based selling stack emerged is that it seems actually, for the most part, very focused still on mechanization, on operationalization, on actually trying to standardize something that I don't think can be standardized. Emissary actually really, I think, is trying to come from a little bit of a different school of thought there, which says embrace the variability, embrace the situational thinking that every account provides, use good frameworks and structures to make sure that the information is being provided. But ultimately, I think, especially we technologists, right? We people who are creating sales technology come from such a place of sales automation, right? Of sales operationalization, of sales mechanization, and I think it's really a missing piece when you think about especially larger account sales or kind of complex account-based selling to be saying it's not just about the machine, it's about the variability, it is about the art as much as the science.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up because I just right before this interview had been asked by a company who's putting together an article. What are the big trends going to be in 2017? And I said that my prediction is it's the return to focus on the importance of the human element in selling.
Yeah,
and that we've gone. I don't say we've gone too far, but people that think that it's all about the science of selling now versus the art really forget the importance of the human aspect of it. And really what it is the science of selling is supporting the art of selling. But you still need that person-to-person connection. You still need the insights. You still need that human element. The uniquely human element of selling is so important.
Too much, I think, of sales technology focuses on the question of how many emails you're sending and who you're sending them to, right? It's and I get it, coming from a technological background, from a data background, from a Google background, those are easier problems to think about automating. But ultimately, I think we're focusing on 3% of the problem because it's the most automatable 3%. And I think you're absolutely right. I think, I don't know if you saw last year, Forrester did this death of a B2B salesman study, right? Which said the only area where there's going to be employment growth is going to be in the complex sale, in the challenger sale.
Yeah, but you could probably still hear my eyes rolling when I saw that report. So
there's a Forrester report for whatever point you're trying.
For whatever purpose, right? Every purpose, there's one out there. So I don't buy into their statistics for the reason that they're saying either. But I think to your point about, people want to put things, salespeople want to, and sales automation is really about saying, look, customers fit into niches. And, if we treat the niche somewhat the same every time, just from a percentage standpoint, we're going to win a certain percentage of the time. And the thing is, those win rates are really low.
Yes.
as much lower than they should be. So
Yep.
I have a thing that I talk about in my presentations about sort of just basic sales habits and behaviors you should have. And one of them is you have to learn how to listen without judgment. Mm-hmm. Because this is a really hugely important sales skill. And the exact words I got from another author who wrote a book called The Coaching Habit, Michael Stanier.
Yep,
but
sure.
It was a fabulous book. But the same idea about listening without judgment is so important. And because every situation is unique. And if you don't acknowledge the variability and the potential for variability, you're going to miss opportunities. What opportunities you're going to miss? You're going to miss the opportunity to provide insight that's going to help you win the business. Because you've got your biases up. My wife, as you know, Dave, she teaches medical school and is dean at NYU School of Medicine. And there's a class they teach there on how to aspiring doctors. I forget the name of the class, but I think called The Practice of Medicine or something like that. But in one lecture, I remember my wife's daughter was in med school at the time, comes back and says, look, this interesting class is they're teaching us how when we first talk to patients in the examining room, is we have this, I forget the numbers, 22 filters and biases inherent in the way we approach these people. Mm-hmm. And it's, based on age, gender, ethnicity, where they live, perception of income, all these things. And you have to wade through the filters in order to arrive at an appropriate and accurate diagnosis. That's right. And the same thing is true in sales.
That's right.
If everybody's in a niche, we've put our filters up and we're completely missing the opportunity.
I think really great sales processes and really great sales tools and methodologies and technologies, what they do is they should be creating the space for this. Right? Again, this goes back to the idea I said before around how emissaries are meant to empower, not replace sellers. Right? Great methodologies are about creating the space for thinking. They're not trying to remove it from the process, not trying to remove it from the cycle.
Oh yeah, well, that's the same reason. I think there's incredible value in so many of the technologies, sales technologies, with the data they generate. Because if I had that data back when I was a bag-carrying salesperson, I would have killed.
Yeah.
I killed anyway, but I would really have killed.
That's right. Well, and I think this was also, to some degree, some of the promise with social selling. Although I think, frankly, it hasn't quite achieved what it could achieve on that front. And I think it's because, again, it kind of turned into mechanization rather than insight. Right? There's too much of, okay, well, now I just have to hit this many touches on LinkedIn and, I have to update my profile this way. And I think the real insight behind social selling is sales will always be about people. And we have this incredible new channel to get insight about people.
Well, I think, yeah, I agree. But I was thinking about another point I wanted to make about Emissary that before I forgot, which was, and this is really key, I think, for managers listening, for owners of companies, CEOs listening, is one of the things that's discussion points as we become more and more prevalent throughout sales in the next year or two is about what really is sales productivity. And the term is used so loosely that it has no value at all. And it's really confused, to your point you made earlier, it's confused with activity. And so when you think about productivity, and the way I think about sales productivity is I think there needs to be like an industry standard measure of productivity, and which is revenue dollars per hour of selling time. Oh,
that's good. Yeah.
Okay. And everybody could agree that would be productivity, because that's how economists measure productivity, right?
Right. That's right.
So your rate of output divided by unit of input. So,
yep.
So if you think about it from the standpoint of using an emissary, if the emissary can help reduce the number of selling hours your people, your team has to invest in order to bring a buyer from initial point of contact to an order, that's actually increasing your productivity, because there are now more available selling hours to sell to other buyers and to generate more revenue. So to me, that is really one of the key points about emissaries. People think, well, what's the payback? Yeah, it's just not just as you're winning deals, that you're going to, if you're using them appropriately, you should be winning deals with less investment of your resources, which is the ultimate boost of productivity in sales.
Yep. One of the core insights of Emissary has always been what would take me 10 minutes to share about Google would take someone else 10 hours to figure out. Right. And if you can, just shorten that line, right? If you can just, cut that knot, to your point, that's massively valuable. This does accelerate deals, I think does increase win rate, does make time to close faster. But the efficiency, the leverage of efficiency is just astonishing. We've seen some really amazing results so far with some of our clients where, to your point, we've seen clients who are using emissaries to disqualify deals to get them out of pipeline. To your point, Andy, to your story before, we've had clients who were prepared to gear up for a massive effort, and the emissary said, I guarantee you they are using you as a stalking horse. You are not going to win this deal. And they listen to the emissary, and look, they put their time into higher yield things. To your point, right? How can you be most efficiently using the time of the salespeople that you're employing is by far the most important thing.
Yeah, and not to put too fine of a point on it, but at the end of the day, I don't really care how long a sales cycle is. I care about how many hours I have to spend to do it, because a sales cycle, that's just a duration. Right? That has no correlation to the number of hours in most cases, the number of hours I'm investing, because that's a buyer measurement. That's not me.
Yep.
So, if you're a manager and you're saying, well, how do I decrease the number of hours I have to invest in any one deal to generate revenue so I can generate, same or higher revenue with those hours elsewhere? Then a tool like Emissary becomes very critical, and seems like a pretty easy payback if you have a decent win rate.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the thing we like to stress is, one of the things that we do like to stress is when we work with clients, we do work across a pipeline, right? Ultimately, sales continues to be a complex thing, right? Emissaries can provide valuable context. But to your point, it's something where the aggregate value is really where it yields. We won't work with clients on just one-shot deals because there's so many different components to a sale. We want to really make sure we're ultimately being able to demonstrate value across the entire pipeline. But when we're able to really work across a pipeline, it's really pretty astonishing what happens.
Excellent. So now, David, last segment of the show, I've got some standard questions I ask all my guests. And first one is hypothetical scenario. And I know that you hadn't necessarily been in sales prior to being a CEO, but you're a CEO, you're in sales now, so you can answer the question.
Sure.
Is in this hypothetical scenario, you've just been hired as VP of sales by a company whose sales have hit a rough patch, stalled out, flatlined, whatever. And CEO and the board are anxious to get things back on track, hit the reset button. So what two things could you do your first week on the job that could have the biggest impact?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the things I would definitely do is I would immediately do is I try to get on the phone with 5 to 10 people who from deals that we recently lost, right? And for me, try and get, it's so easy inside of an organization to develop your own narrative, your own truth about what's going on. And you can interview people and everyone's going to say, oh, the product sucks or marketing sucks. And it's always easy to kind of keep pointing fingers and keep running around. And so the ability to get kind of unvarnished, authentic feedback from people who you sold to and say, hey, you know what, you guys, your seller was the problem, right? It really was, didn't pay attention, or we had made a decision by the time you came in. So the first thing I would really try to do is get my own ground truth. And obviously you're going to talk to the reps, obviously you're going to talk to the organization, but being able to talk to people who actually you just sold to, and it could be just calling them up and saying, hey, can you give me some honest feedback? Or trying to figure out how to do it. But to me, that would be priority number one, is generating my own ground truth. I think the other thing is a culture thing really is, you want to, I think, really come in and in the first week or two, one of my big things is really being sure that you can kind of establish a moment of excellence, right? I'm a big believer that, we all look to our peers to determine what excellence looks like. And being able to kind of establish with your organization that there is a capacity for excellence. And what it looks like is, I think, a great way to motivate people if you have the right people. And if people aren't responding to watching their peers being excellent, they're not the kind of people you want inside the organization. And so I think figuring out how you can kind of get a couple outsized moments and maybe trying to do something that is kind of a wow moment in the first week or two, is both a way to both establish authority and also a way to kind of reset a culture that can often have been toxic.
Okay. Great answer. Like it. All right. So now we've got some rapid fire questions. You can make one word answers or give me more than one word if you wish. So, you've been out, you just closed a big Series A financing for your company. So you've been out selling quite a bit recently. So when you, David, are out selling, what's your most powerful sales attribute?
So I think the most powerful sales attribute of Emissary is simplicity. It's one word, right? What we do is so clear and straightforward. And I do think as a seller as well, that's my kind of strength, is the ability to kind of speak in a fairly straightforward, unvarnished, unfiltered way, and to be able to kind of speak authentically. Okay. And I think we've all become so inundated with noise that the ability to speak with clarity is just crucial.
Okay. So who's your sales role model?
Not a salesperson, an entrepreneur.
Okay.
A guy by the name of Nat Turner was co-founder of a company called Flatiron Health. Before that, was co-founder of a company called Invite Media, which my team acquired at Google. And Nat, just something you said before, Andy, Nat listens better than anybody I've ever met. He's an unbelievable ear. He never forgets a thing you say. And he does it in a way that's very unassuming. Mm-hmm. And really, Nat's a few years younger than me. When we hired him at Google, when we acquired this company, I remember, for the first time feeling like kind of someone more junior than me was running circles around me. And I mean, he's continued to just prove his absolute excellence. I mean, Flatiron's worth $1 billion, and I think really his ability to just observe and listen makes him an amazing seller, and that was an important lesson for me.
Okay, great. So, what's one book you think every salesperson should read?
Yeah. So I've listened to a few of these podcasts, and I think you hear a lot of great recommendations that are sales books, right? Whether it's Mike Weinberg or mm-hmm. Challenger Customer. There's a lot of great sales books out there. I figured I'd recommend one that's not from the sales world.
Perfect.
A book called The Righteous Mind that came out about 5 years ago by a professor named Jonathan Haidt. The Righteous Mind it's a book about politics, I guess appropriate for the election season, and it's a book about why the American left and right can't seem to talk with each other. And Jonathan talks about this idea that we all have fundamental moral intuitions, and most of our decisions in life come from the fact that we make a more intuitive moral judgment, and then we look for facts to support it.
Yes.
And what he kind of talks about is the idea that the American left and American right he kind of creates a framework for describing their moral intuitions, and then talks about kind of how if you want to talk to somebody from the other side, the best way to do that is to understand their moral intuitions and to frame your arguments in terms of their moral intuitions. And I think this notion is so critical for selling, right? This notion of empathy, this notion of being able to understand people's intuitions and understand how to frame things in the right way is absolutely critical. And his work, this book is one of the books I think of when I think of books that really changed my mind. And I can't recommend it highly enough. Excellent.
Yeah, I love the sound of it. I mean, because I've been doing a lot of talking and reading and writing recently about emotion-driven decision-making, which, mm-hmm. In essence is what he's sort of talking about.
That's right.
I mean, it's not the logical. The moral, I don't think, is logical at all.
That's right.
And decision-making science, people have seen that fundamentally almost every decision in life, not just the big ones, but what to wear, what to eat, everything's driven by emotions, and we backfill the rationalizations to justify it.
Well, a lot of the, obviously behavioral economics has been very popular for the past 5 years, and a lot of talk about Daniel Kahneman and people like that, and I'm a huge fan of that work as well. What I like about his work is that it's grounded in a different area and comes really from this moral perspective, which I thought was very enlightening. Yeah, so I really recommend it. It's a quick read. He's a very good writer. Definitely a great book.
All right, going on my list. All right, last question for you. What music's on your playlist these days?
Let's see. I'm listening to, I kind of mix between, I feel like, serene and the very loud. So sometimes it's someone like Bon Iver, who's got right
mellow,
and then sometimes it's a metal band called Mastodon. So it's been a very strange mix, but it's been a lot of fun.
Mastodon, okay, I'm not familiar with them.
Yeah, they're really fun. They're kind of crazy.
Are they a New York band?
No, I think they're from Atlanta, I want to say, actually. I could be wrong, though.
All right. Well, cool.
They've been around for a while.
All right. Mastodon's on my list. Haven't heard that one. One of the benefits of doing this show is great music recommendations, great book recommendations. So David, thanks for being on the show.
Andy, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And tell folks how they can find out more about Emissary.
Yeah, www.emissary.io. And yeah, we're looking forward to it.
And if they want to connect with you?
My email is just david@emissary.io. So feel free to email me directly.
All right, perfect. Well, again, David, thanks very much for being on the show. And friends, thank you for taking time out of your day to join me. And remember, make it part of your daily routine every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And an easy way to do that, take a minute, subscribe to this podcast, Accelerate. That way you won't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, David Hammer, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining me, and until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.